Hi, my name is Dr. Kobernick, and I'm a clinical psychologist, founder and director at the CBT-DBT Center, where we specialize in offering evidence-based mental health services for the Fromm community. So today I'll be talking about healthy shame and guilt. It's a favorite topic of mine. I especially love talking about it close to the time of the high holidays because this is very relevant for everything that's going on this time of year. So I'm excited to be sharing this with you. So let's jump right in. These terms are often confused, and honestly, the words don't matter, but the concepts matter a lot. So first of all, just to explain what am I talking about, guilt refers to something that I did wrong, or it's an emotion that shows up when I did something wrong, versus shame is an emotion of I am wrong. These emotions work very differently, even though we often confuse them. So often shame and guilt show up together, or we feel one when really the emotion that makes more sense or would fit the situation better might be the other one. So there are different times when shame and guilt can be helpful. All emotions can be helpful sometimes. That's why they're there. And sometimes we abuse them or use them when they're unhelpful or in the wrong times. So guilt is helpful when we've actually done something that that doesn't fit with our morals or values. So if I hurt my friend, right, that goes against what I believe in. I don't feel good about that. I don't like doing that. And I'm going to feel guilt. Guilt is healthy, wonderful. And its job is to motivate me to repair, which is a wonderful thing. Like that's going to help me to actually keep the relationship alive, to do something to keep healthy relationships, which is what I want, right? Shame, on the other hand, might show up like, oh my God, I'm a terrible friend. Like hate myself, right? Shame might show up, but shame actually is not really going to be helpful here because shame is an emotion of there's something wrong with me, and not an emotion of I did something wrong, but there's actually something wrong with me. And shame, when is shame helpful? Shame is helpful when so guilt is helpful when we've done something wrong and it helps us to repair the wrong. Shame is helpful when we're going to get socially rejected if part of us gets known. So I always give the example of if you pick your nose, there's nothing wrong with that. Like there's nothing inherently wrong with picking your nose. But if you do that in front of a group of people who you're trying to be friends with, they will think that that's gross, most likely in most social circles. And they won't want to be your friend, or they won't want to touch you, or they won't want to come near you, right? They're going to have thoughts and feelings about that you don't want them to have. You want to be accepted into this group, so don't pick your nose in front of them. But go to the bathroom, pick your nose, God bless. And no one will be the wiser, and you can still feel good about yourself as a person. Versus, if you do something that you actually don't like about yourself, that you actually like aren't happy that you did, like you spoke not nicely about somebody that is important to you, that you don't feel good that you did that because it goes against what's important to you. That generates guilt, which is helpful because you did something wrong. It's going to motivate you to repair. Versus picking your nose, nothing wrong with that. And if you do that, the whole problem with it is just the social rejection piece. So then shame comes along. And shame's whole job is to protect you from that social rejection. So it's not going to motivate you to repair like guilt. It's actually going to motivate you to hide. So when we feel shame, the urge is to hide. That's what shame comes along with. It comes along with an urge to hide. If you Google images shame, you're going to get lots of pictures like this. Because that's what comes along with shame is the urge to hide. Of course, that makes perfect sense when shame's whole function is to protect us from social rejection. Now, this is really interesting this time of year when we're working on tshuva, on making repairs and making amends, and working on improving ourselves, because what I think is that people are often confusing shame and guilt. So instead of, oh my gosh, I did this sin, I did this thing wrong, and I want to work on it, which would be a guilt emotion. And guilt is an emotion of, or comes along with the motivation to go, to do something, to repair, to fix. So if I did something wrong and I feel guilt, great, I'm motivated. But if I'm going to feel shame, like, oh my God, I'm a terrible person, I'm always doing this, I'm always messing up, what's wrong with me, I hate myself, guess what shame is going to tell you to do? Shame is going to tell you to stop. It's going to tell you to hide. It's going to tell you to shut down and close off that part. Don't think about it. Don't go there because it's too painful, because it's too embarrassing. And that is not going to actually lead to you improving your life, to you changing anything, to you growing as a person. That's not going to go in that direction. That's not happening. What's happening is the total opposite. What's happening is actually a shutdown or a closed offness from that challenge. So what's actually needed is to focus on guilt rather than shame in order for us to actually improve ourselves this time of year. Now, something really interesting. I specialize in DBT, although I do many different types of therapy. One of the main therapies that I do is DBT. And in DBT, we teach a skill for changing your emotion when it's unhelpful. So, for example, let's say I'm feeling really, really anxious about going to a family event. And that anxiety is going to tell me, don't go. Or go, but like sit in the corner and don't talk to anybody, right? That's because anxiety comes along with the urge to avoid. So what I might do instead, since that anxiety is not really helping me, because anxiety is helpful when there's a danger, and there's no danger at going to this family event, although it could be uncomfortable or hard, but there's no danger there. But anxiety is showing up. So if I want to change that anxiety, what I have to do is go, but also go like with a smile and like openness and like kind of like not fake it till you make it, but do it all the way. Or like the just do it Nike, right? Just like go all the way. And when you do that, the anxiety is going to come down. Now, so when you have an emotion that's unhelpful, one thing that you can do to change that emotion is to do the opposite of whatever the emotion tells you to do. So anxiety tells you to avoid, instead approach, go forth, go into the situation all the way. If you are feeling guilt when it's helpful, when you actually did something wrong, then guilt is going to tell you to repair the wrong. If you're feeling it when it's not helpful, then it's going to tell you to repair something that you didn't do wrong. So you're going to be like, let's say, over apologizing, for example. If you feel, now here's where I really think is the clincher when it comes to the high holidays and this whole time of the year. If you are feeling shame where really guilt is necessary, so you're telling yourself, I'm a terrible person, when really you just did something wrong, then instead of actually achieving real change, you're stuck in the shame reaction, which is to hide. And if you look at the DBT handouts, which is nothing to do with Judaism, nothing to do with the high holidays, nothing, as far as I know, nobody explained this to them. If you look at what to do as the opposite action for ineffective shame, when guilt is effective, so do what guilt is saying, but don't do what shame is saying, the opposite of what shame is saying, it literally says the exact steps of tshuva. Stop doing the bad thing, regret it, confess it, acknowledge what you did, and make a plan for how to do it differently in the future. That's the exact layout of what we learn are the steps of tshuva. So when we feel effective guilt and we let go of ineffective shame, we actually are able to achieve true tshuva, because it's really, or true repentance. There's really this amazing phenomenon in the world that enables us to create change. And it comes from our motivation, our ability to achieve it comes from our emotion of guilt, or a healthy emotion of guilt. The problem is that in our generation, we walk around so focused on hating ourselves or explaining why it's all our fault that we get stuck in the trap of shame. Shame is a fantastic emotion if you're picking your nose in a social situation. Don't do that. Feel shame. If you're about to, yell in the middle of lecture, shame is going to come along and tell you don't do that, because it's going to protect you from that social rejection. So shame is a wonderful emotion. We don't want to get rid of shame. And we're using it in a lot of the wrong places. Shame is not helpful when we're actually trying to achieve change. When we're trying to achieve change, guilt really shines. Guilt's job when we're trying to achieve change is to motivate us, to show us what we did that's not aligned with our values, and to motivate us to repair. And if we follow what guilt tells us to do, we're naturally going to repent. We're naturally going to say, hey, this is not working. This is what I did. I really regret it. I wish I hadn't done that. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to stop doing that. And here's how I want to make it different in the future. So that's what healthy guilt is going to motivate us to do. So, and that aligns perfectly with what happens, with what this whole time period is about, which is about actually achieving true change. And if we allow ourselves to feel the healthy guilt, it will motivate effective change. So that's a pretty cool phenomenon, in my opinion. I think the way to, so here's a strategy for switching from when shame is showing up, how to switch to effective guilt. So, because I think what we do instead is we say like, I'm great, like everything's fine. And then either we then get rid of the shame, but we don't feel guilt either, or we just stay ashamed because we don't actually believe that. So I don't think that strategy is fantastic. I think what a much more effective strategy is letting go of judgments. So what takes us from guilt to shame? Like, how do we get there? If I do something wrong, how do I get all the way to I'm a terrible person? I hate myself. I don't want to exist. How do we get there? We get there when we make meaning out of our behavior. So I did something wrong. I said something hurtful to my friend. Okay. And I could own it. Like, I said something not nice to my friend. I don't like that I did that. I wish I hadn't done that. I'm going to apologize to her and I'm going to make a plan for not doing it again. There you go. Tshuva. Bam. Done. But if I instead say, oh my God, I said something really hurtful to my friend, what kind of a friend does that? Who does that? Who do you think you are? You're an obnoxious person. Nobody likes people like that. This is why you don't have friends. And I make it mean something about me as a person. Bam. Now I've switched my guilt into shame. And the problem with that is that it really moves my my ability to actually make real change, because I now shut off my ability to actually do something without effective guilt, because I'm in the shame mode, and shame is the emotion of stop. So in order for me to actually affect real change, what I have to do is let go of those judgments. So the judgments are, I did this thing wrong. I said something hurtful. That means I'm a terrible person. If I can let go of that, nothing to do with being a terrible person, okay? I did this thing. I said something horrible to my friend. Now I can own it. And now I can do something about it. I can repent. I can change it. I can make a different situation. I can do true tshuva. But if I get stuck in this means something terrible about me, that's where I get trapped in the shame trap. Some questions that came in are, I'm really embarrassed about abusing my siblings when we were kids. They don't talk to me many years later. How can I move forward? So I think that this is easily falling, it sounds to me from the way the person wrote the question, that this is easily falling into the category of shame, of ineffective shame. Because what could happen here is, I'm embarrassed. I hate myself for doing this thing. And therefore, I'm going to feel shame, which is going to motivate me to hide. I don't want to even tell anybody I did this. I don't want anyone to know. I don't want to acknowledge it. I don't even want to think about it. It's so embarrassing and painful. How likely is it that I'm going to then be able to make changes in my life? Extremely, extremely, extremely unlikely. So in order for me to actually make change, or for this person who wrote in this question to achieve change, what would need to happen is, instead of maybe, like I'm assuming, sounds to me like there's some level of I'm a terrible person for abusing my siblings. Instead, could we own, what did you actually do? What actually happened? Like, what's the actual behavior? What did you actually do? And just say that. As painful and hard as that can be, owning what you did is going to enable you to own what you did, regret it, acknowledge that what you did was wrong or hurtful or painful, apologize for it, make plans for it not to happen anymore. Letting go of the judgment of it, that it means you're a terrible person, or it means something about you, bichlal, at all, like that it has to mean anything about you, that is going to enable you to move into guilt mode, where you can actually make changes. In guilt mode, it can still be extremely painful, but in guilt mode, you can actually apologize, you can repair, you can make amends, you can make changes, you can really make a difference, make things different than they are now. versus in shame mode, there's no room to move. There's just no room for anything to get different. And then the next question that came in is, what's the line between healthy and unhealthy shame? So yeah, I think it's a really clear line. Shame is healthy and helpful when it's protecting you from social rejection. That's its whole function. You never need to tell yourself you're a terrible person, ever. It's just not ever a useful thing to do. What you can do is if you're doing something that will get you socially rejected, you can acknowledge that, hey, that's going to get me socially rejected. I like to share this example. We do an Ask Us Anything Tuesdays on our WhatsApp chat. If you're not subscribed to it, you can, how can you get it? I'll put it in the comments here. You can send a message, subscribe to our WhatsApp number, posting it now. And on Tuesdays, you can submit a question, and we answer up to 20 questions a week with lots of useful information from our team of mental health professionals. So that's a really fun thing to be part of. In any case, one time, a bunch of weeks ago, somebody asked a question. I am a religious Orthodox Jewish woman. I am in shidduchim. I'm in like the dating period of my life. And I really want to get a second ear piercing, but in my cultural circles, that's not normal. And I'm worried how it's going to impact my ability to get married. But should I care about that? It's not a Jewish law issue. There's no halachic issue. There's no Jewish law issue with getting a second ear piercing. So I'm just doing it purely, I'm not getting it purely because of this issue. Do you think I should care about that? I think that's such a great example of this because there's nothing wrong with getting a second ear piercing as far as I know. So there's no reason for guilt. There's no reason to not do it from that perspective. Like, it's not against your morals. It's not against your values. It doesn't mean it doesn't say anything. It's not wrong. It's not wrong. However, what it is it's going to on a level get you socially rejected. And you don't want to be socially rejected from this group. You want to be part of this group. And part of being part of this group is conforming to their social basic rules. And one of them is not getting a second ear piercing. Whether that's right or wrong or good or bad, that's not the point here. The point is that that's what it takes to be part of this social circle. And so shame will show up and say, hey, don't do it, don't do it. And that's what this girl was asking. She was saying like, hey, I'm having this conflict, not because I don't want the piercing. I want the piercing. I'm having the conflict because something's pulling me back. And that's the shame. That's healthy shame. So healthy shame protects us from social rejection. It protects us from doing things, from publicizing parts of ourselves that wouldn't be socially acceptable. And by the way, you can always choose to change your social circle. If you don't like that your social circle would reject you for this thing, so choose a different social circle. But every social circle is going to have things that are unacceptable to that social circle. So you're going to have to not share that part of yourself if that's part of you. Like I said, like even if you pick your nose, right? It's just generally speaking socially unacceptable. Nothing bad about it inherently, but it is generally socially unacceptable. And so shame will show up to protect you from that. However, if you want to achieve true change this holiday season, you will need to engage with guilt. And guilt can be painful and hard. And it's really, really valuable because it motivates us to actually make real changes. So I wish you all the best of luck in making real change this year. I encourage you to engage with your healthy guilt to motivate that change to happen and to notice where unhelpful shame is showing up in your life and preventing you from making the changes that you want to make, and to let it go, grounding back in what's actually important to you and what you actually want to be doing in the best way possible. Okay, take care.